This is the Landmarks Preservation Commission public hearing, public meeting of July 27, 2021. This is an audio check. Good morning, Commissioners. This is the Landmarks Preservation Commission public hearing, public meeting of July 27th, 2021. Chair Carroll. Here. Vice Chair Bland. Here. Commissioner Bergen. Here. Commissioner Chapin. Commissioner Chen. Here. Commissioner Devonshire. Here. Commissioner Goldblum. Here. Commissioner Gustafson. Here. Commissioner Jefferson. Here. Commissioner Lutfi. Commissioner Holford Smith. Here.
All right, thank you, and good morning. And we have a Preservation Department hearing agenda today, so we'll turn it over to Corey Harala to take us through that agenda.
Thank you, Sarah, and good morning, everyone. We'll start today's Preservation Department public hearing agenda with item number 1. This is LPC 21-03796, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Brooklyn, Block 386, Lot 26, 174 Bergen Street in the Boerum Hill Historic District. This is a modified Italianate style row house built in 1873 to 74, and the application is to replace windows. And the applicant may begin.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael Scaduto. I am the architect and applicant for the window replacement at 174 Bergen Street in the Boerum Hill Historic District. I won't go through the summary again, but just on this first slide is the 1940s tax photo, which shows 2/2 wood windows, and that is what we will be aiming to replicate in our application. So 174 Bergen is in the middle of the Boerum Hill Historic District. This is just a location map. Here are photos showing the current condition on the right, which is 6/6 and 9/9 on the parlor floor. Wood windows with aluminum storms and framed and aluminum storm windows and screens. And on the left is the 1973 designation photo from when the district was designated, which shows more or less the same windows, I think, minus some of the storm windows and screens. Here are our existing and proposed elevations. So again, showing the 6/6 and 9/9 windows and a proposed 2/2, which will replicate the windows that were existent in the 1940 tax photo. These are details of the existing conditions. This is at the basement level. So there's existing wooden brick molds that are pretty badly deteriorated, and we don't feel that they can be saved. So we're planning on replacing them with wooden brick molds in front of the proposed aluminum windows. This is at the parlor floor and this is typical for the windows above on the second and third floor as well, where there are aluminum caps on top of either there may be the existing wood behind that, which we assume would be in a deteriorated state, or the wooden brick molds were removed when the aluminum caps were put in along with the storm windows and the screens. And these are photos of similar windows one house over at 176 Bergen, where there are aluminum windows, and where at the basement level, where there is a round arched profile in the masonry opening, the windows are squared off, which is the way the existing wood windows are at 174 as well. And this is just showing better and in better shape wood brick molds on 176 and 178 Bergen, the two houses going to the east that we are going to replicate that style. Here are details of our proposed aluminum windows. So they will have a full divided light muntin that has a spacer bar in between, and the muntin is styled after the an Italianate style that we assume would have been appropriate for from the 1940 windows. we are going to create a wooden brick mold that will match what's at 178, which is the best in the best condition and the easiest to replicate. And I just want to point out that the windows as well will have screens on them that sit, between the brick mold and the aluminum frame, with a top and a bottom screen. And finally, this is just a detail of the muntin. This is in white, ours will be in black, so you will not see these sort of separate pieces as much. It will all sort of go together. And I just wanted to, I believe was entered in the record was a letter from the owner. And I just wanted to sort of summarize her comments or her statement. Just basically that she's owned the house since 1993. She is retired, she's on a fixed income. She's requesting to do the aluminum windows because they are both much more energy efficient than what's there now and slightly more energy efficient than a wooden window. And mostly because the price difference between the aluminum windows and wood windows, even aluminum clad wood windows, which I know is something that Landmarks is more often amenable to in these situations, is still about 4 times what the aluminum windows. And she's willing to, she's happy to do the extra, to have the muntins, to have it be the 2/2s to match the historic windows, but needs to, respectfully request a much more economical solution than wood windows, which puts it outside of her budget. And that's it.
Okay, commissioners, do we have any questions?
Yeah.
Yes, Commissioner Devonshire.
This looks like a 17th century Dutch muntin, very wide. Have you investigated more slender muntins, more period appropriate?
It's 7/8 of an inch wide, so it's not. This is just a very zoom in, but it's the same dimension of, I think, of the tradition of the appropriate muntins. It's not a specific. It's not an extra wide size.
Okay.
Okay, other questions? Okay, we'll move to public testimony. Simeon Bancroft.
Good morning, Commissioners. Simeon Bancroft, Executive Director of the Historic Districts Council. HDC finds the proposed configuration to be appropriate for this Italianate-style row house as evidenced by its next-door neighbor. Our concern lies in the choice of materials. These should be aluminum-clad units, not aluminum ones. The details on them, as mentioned by Commissioner Devonshire, are not up to an appropriate standard. We recommend that the applicants look into a better version of these windows, which are aluminum-clad. We understand the concerns about expense, but windows actually pay for themselves over the long haul. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this item? All right, and we did receive a resolution from Brooklyn Community Board 2 recommending approval of the application. Okay, would you like to respond to the question about aluminum clad wood versus aluminum and details?
Yes, thank you. And I just want to also point out that the Boerum Hill Association also gave their support to the community board, which was, part of their decision to recommend this. Yeah, the aluminum clad wood would ultimately look relatively the same from the exterior. I don't think there's any real, it still is the same material in the visible portion. And the profile of these windows and this muntin is, we do believe, is historically appropriate. And in terms of for windows paying for themselves, that is the heart of the issue, which is that these windows are under $1,000 each, and certainly for the parlor floor, we're quoted over $5,000 for those windows, and it just makes the project untenable.
$5,000 for the aluminum clad.
For wood windows, but aluminum clad is an add-on to the wood windows, so it would possibly be even more expensive.
Okay. All right, commissioners, any final questions? Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Bland.
Sarah, can you remind us if we've ever approved an aluminum window as opposed to an aluminum clad wood window in situations like this?
So under the rules for a staff level approval, if the window historically had a 1/1 window, the staff can approve an aluminum 1/1 sash within the a wood brick mold or the historic brick mold. For multi-light windows, the staff can only approve wood, and the other materials come to us. And I believe that we have approved aluminum clad wood, but I can't recall any that are just straight aluminum. And Corey, is that your recollection as well?
I think that is correct, at least in recent years. Almost always aluminum clad wood, and in large part, and you can see that in the details here, the extruded aluminum windows have very little space between the face of the frame and the glass. And even if you do try to do muntins such as these, they don't always sort of mend into the frame or built into the frame. They're more of an applied thing that doesn't fit exactly right, whereas the aluminum clad windows seem to have better integrated muntin details.
So to clarify, if for some reason this was just 1/1 that he was suggesting, you could approve it?
Yes, except the brick mold would have to be wood.
Right.
This is an extruded aluminum panning. But the idea behind the rule for the 1/1 is that in buildings that historically had 1/1 windows, which were later row houses, the brick mold was the most decorative portion, and so the sash frame is really just sort of a flat 1.5 to 2 inch piece of surface that you would see. A multi-light window has obviously more details, and so the staff can't approve a different material for multi-light windows.
Also, therein lies the issue, because I don't think this was originally 1/1. Is that the issue?
So this is 2/2, yeah. So they're proposing to match the configuration, but the material is before us because it's a change in material. Yes.
But we are proposing the wood brick mold, which would be,
Thank
if
you
it
for
was a
correcting that.
1/1 window, the only requirement to do aluminum would be to do the wood brick mold. The only thing that separates us from that is the muntin, the single vertical muntin.
Thank you for clarifying that. And so, right, I do see that. And that wood brick mold is matching in profile?
The plan is to match the one at 178, which is here on the right, which we assume is historic based on
Okay.
what it looks like.
And so you have the brick mold and then the stop, and your screen is going to tuck in between the two?
Our screen would basically be where that stop is. That's
Okay.
that portion there.
All right, thank you. Other questions? Okay, let's have a motion to close the hearing. Who will second it?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed and we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Holford-Smith, would you like to start this one?
Sure. Well, I understand the problem with the cost of the window, but I think that given the proximity to the street and the view of the window, which is quite close, that the aluminum will recognize it's an aluminum window, not an historic configuration. So I think they should stick with the aluminum clad.
Okay, Commissioner Goldman?
I agree.
Commissioner Devonshire?
I agree also, and I having now seen that muntin in section, I would hope the applicant will work with the staff to get a more period appropriate muntin. The fillet, the central fillet on that thing is far too wide. It's very awkward looking.
Okay, Commissioner Chen?
Same here.
And Commissioner Bland?
Yeah, I think it's a tough one for me. I was almost persuaded that we should test this idea, but I can see my lone voice might be too lonely.
Okay, Commissioner Jefferson?
I agree with your fellow commissioners. I agree.
Okay. Commissioner Gustafson?
I agree as well.
And
Yes, woodclad. I agree.
okay, all right. So I think we have support for approval with modifications for an aluminum clad wood window or wood, and to refine the details on that muntin, working with the staff. Commissioner Holford-Smith?
In the matter of LPC 21-03796, 174 Bergen Street in the Boerum Hill Historic District. A modified Italianate style row house built in 1873-74. The application is to replace windows. I note that the building's style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Boerum Hill Historic District. I recommend approval with modifications, finding that the work will not damage or destroy any significant architectural features, that the proposed window sashes will match the historic sashes in terms of configuration, operation, profiles, and finish, and that if the proposed windows feature details which more closely match the historic details, a metal cladding would not be easily discernible from wood. However, I find that the proposed metal windows do not sufficiently replicate the historic windows in terms of details, and that the overall installation details are not fully developed. Therefore, I recommend that wood or aluminum clad wood sashes with details more closely matching the historic details be used instead of extruded aluminum only, and that the applicant work with the commission staff to develop the overall installation details.
Okay, and Commissioner Goldblum, would you second that?
Second.
All right, and Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll.
Aye.
Commissioner Bland.
Aye.
Commissioner Boerum.
Aye.
Commissioner Chung.
Aye.
Commissioner Devonshire.
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum.
Aye.
Commissioner Gustafson.
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Holford Smith.
Aye.
With 9 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
All right, so that's approved with those modifications. Please continue to work with the staff. Thank you. All right, we move to the next item.
Okay, the next item is public hearing item number 267 Cumberland Street in the Fort Greene Historic District. This is LPC 21-06055. It's an application for a certificate of appropriateness, Borough of Brooklyn, Block 2102, Lot 2. This is a row house built in 1863, and the application is to construct a rear yard addition.
Good morning. My name is Jenny Payson, and I am the architect for this project. Thank you for the opportunity to present this morning. The proposal we have for you today is for a rear yard addition to the existing building located at 267 Cumberland Street, located in the Fort Greene Historic District. To give you a little background on the building, 267 Cumberland is a 4-story townhome built around 1863 in the French Second Empire style. The building was not constructed as part of a row. It is sandwiched between a 4-story Greek Revival townhome to the south and a newer 2-story brick building to the north. As part of the first phase to this project in 2020, my firm worked with LPC staff to repair and replace the brick on the primary facade and replace the windows. So today's presentation is just going to be focused on our second phase of the project, which consists of a rear yard addition and several other exterior modifications we'll be pursuing at the staff level, such as a new roof guardrail and new openings in the secondary facade. Looking at this block plan, we'd like to call attention to the condition that happens in the interior of the block surrounding 267 Cumberland, and that's our project with the yellow star indicating it. The rear facades of the surrounding buildings vary quite a bit in depth, with the building to the south, 269 Cumberland, being 10 feet shorter than our existing building, and the building to the north, 265 Cumberland, being about 9 foot 2 inches deeper than our building. This condition exemplifies the overall diverse massings of the buildings found within the block donut. Also noted here on the block plan, we found that more than 50% of the buildings in the block have a rear yard addition, and that the predominant depth of those existing rear yard additions is about 16 feet. While there are multiple examples of 3- and 4-story additions on the block, the predominant height of the other additions is 2 stories. Here are some images of the existing rear facade of our building. You can see it is a painted brick finish with little masonry detail. Here are some additional zoomed in images of the existing rear facade. And you can see how the top floor has a basic flat brick cornice, as well as arched masonry openings of the top floor windows, where they've been replaced with metal squared off fenestration. This is a better photo showing that more modern, deeper red-orange brick building just to the north. And these are photos capturing the shallower Greek Revival townhouse, which has a stuccoed rear facade to our south. These images show the single-family home, which is located at 147C Lafayette. While not located along a street, This is actually a single-family home located within the center of the block and has a presence along the lot line with 267 Cumberland at the southeast corner of the lot. This is an image of the interior of the block that is directly across and facing 267 Cumberland. Here you can see a wide range of architectural styles and materials being used, as well as a number of rear yard additions and balconies. This photograph is representative of the overall lack of aesthetic and volumetric cohesion within the donut. We are looking to pick up on some of the materials used in these buildings in our proposed addition. And here we have two site plans, the existing on the left and the proposed on the right. So now I can get into more of the details of our design. The proposed enlargement would be a stepped massing where the cellar and basement levels would extend 15'6" back from the existing rear facade, while the enlargement on the first and second floors would extend back 10'9" from the existing rear facade. The third floor at the top would not be enlarged. We are proposing to drop the sill of one of the windows in the existing facade to add a door to a terrace atop the addition. This will be a bit clearer in the next slide. So this is the axonometric drawing of the proposed addition. You can see how the massing comes together. I do just want to mention that in our previous presentations with the community board, we were pursuing a full height addition. However, we did hear concerns over the size of the building and the potential for visibility over the shorter building next door. In light of those concerns, we have revised this massing so that the top floor is not enlarged. The new proposed enlargement will not be visible from the street, and the scale of the new rear facade better complements the scale of the adjacent buildings and rear additions. Here is the proposed rendering of the rear addition. As I mentioned, we're trying to pick up on some of the materiality found in other proximate rear additions. So we developed this simple pattern palette with a neutral stucco, black metal, and a teak wood accent. The two lot line walls on either side of the addition, including the existing side walls, will be refinished with a typical three-part stucco in a neutral gray as close as possible to match the existing color. We're also proposing black metal fenestration as well as a wood accent to act as a warm feature on the rear wall, contrasting against the black metal and glass. While I do not have physical samples of these materials today, we expect the samples of the materials will be submitted and reviewed with LPC staff prior to commencement of any work. This slide is exploring the visibility of our proposed addition from Cumberland Street. As I mentioned, previous iterations of the addition were full height, and so a small portion would have been visible through the parapet fence on 265 Cumberland. However, since the top floor was removed, we've determined that the rear yard addition will not be visible from anywhere along Cumberland Street. The image in the bottom left illustrates the vantage point looking straight through the side yard. And you can see here that the side wall is at such an oblique angle that the addition will effectively not be visible. This one angle is what has informed the idea to have the party walls be a neutral stucco so that the addition can be blended into the building when we stuccoing the party walls. Here's a sightline diagram illustrating that the addition will not be visible either over our building, over the neighboring building, or through the gap in the neighboring building's parapet. We also had some concern as to whether or not the proposed addition will be visible from a street wall gap along Carlton Avenue. We have explored this possibility and determined that the rear addition will not be visible as the building at 147C Lafayette obscures the view of 267 Cumberland. And here's the sight line that reinforces this exploration, as the mass of the addition falls below any possible line of sight. I won't spend too much time with these drawings as I feel like I've covered the design to this point. But here you can see,
Just because it's hard to hear, especially with the masks, if you could just speak a little more slowly, that would be great.
do you want me to backtrack a bit?
No, I think that's okay, but just.
Okay, sure. So this is just the rear facade of our building in context with its neighboring buildings. There are three distinct facades with no common datums, architectural features, or materiality, and they are not coplanar. And here's the proposed elevations. This is the existing north elevation along the side yard. It shows how the depth relates to the massing of the adjacent two-story buildings. And the windows here have been determined to fall under staff level review. Same goes here for the south elevation, where you can see the existing and how the depth of the buildings compare. It's the existing building section. And this proposed section is showing the excavation for the cellar, which I haven't touched on yet, but the addition would include enlargement of the cellar directly underneath the addition. We have engaged a structural and geotechnical engineer to evaluate all subsurface conditions and prepare supportive excavation drawings to ensure any earthwork will not impact the neighboring buildings. We will also be doing optical crack monitoring throughout the construction. I would also just like to briefly touch on one point of contention that came up in the community board presentations, which we have tried to address in our latest revisions. Our neighbor to the south has expressed concern for the safety of some vegetation that is located in her yard and the potential for harm given this earthwork. As a solution, we propose shifting the foundation wall of the cellar enlargement away from the property line. You can see that in detail 2. So that all earth retaining will occur fully within the property lines of 267 Cumberland, as to minimize any disturbance on the adjacent properties. So the floor plans. And that's all I have for you today. I'd like to thank you again for your time, and I look forward to hearing your feedback.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions? Any questions? Okay, we'll move to public testimony. We may have questions after that. All right, and we'll start with anyone who signed up in advance. So we're going to start with Andrew Zins-Brown.
Hello, thank you for having me here today. My name is Andrew Zins-Brown. I'm the neighbor at 269 Cumberland, along with my wife, Kenneth. We own the building. And,
Can you make sure you're speaking into the mic so we can pick it up? Thanks so much.
I'll just try to briefly go through some points, which I also explained more fully in my letter. We feel that the proposed project at 267 Cumberland is aesthetically out of step with the small-scale character of the Fort Greene Historic District, and rather resembles a generic contemporary co-op. Although the proposed addition is for the rear of the property, which I guess is usually less of a concern for LPC, its contemporary aesthetics and proportion is drastically out of character with its surroundings. It's due to these reasons, we believe, that the community board rejected the proposal twice, and why so many of my neighbors have concerns about it. There are only 9 buildings on the block with 3-story additions. It's more characteristic to have 2-story additions, as Ms. Payson noted. And I think because of the position of the carriage house, this addition would basically block us in, giving us very little light and airflow, which we find to be in violation of the New York City Planning Zoning Resolution on bulk regulations. We're also concerned about the precedent that this proposal would establish in our donut of larger scale, more ambitious projects. For us, moving into a landmark district is partially about the fact that we're a community and it's not just everyone for themselves developing as big as they can. We're concerned about the outdoor space proposals, particularly the rooftop deck. In the drawings, and as Ms. Payson said, they're not visible from the street. However, if you just move right over to 265 Cumberland and you look at it from an angle, they're fully visible from the street. The rooftop is pitched, and furthermore, there are no other rooftop gardens on the whole block, so this would be totally out of character with the historic aesthetics of the district. There's a little detailed question, I know I'm running short on time, but about the railing and its compliance with the city zoning regulations. I explained that more fully in my letter. The excavation for the basement seems to us to be a real concern, not only for the vegetation, but also for the structural integrity. These are buildings that have been there for over 100 years. So far, Ms. Payson says, and I believe her, that they're working with a geoengineer to explore that, but no one knows if it's, for instance, rubble wall or what might happen once you dig 10 feet, more than 10 feet deep and 20 feet long.
Okay. Can I ask you to wrap up? The
Yes.
bell has gone off. Thank you.
I will. So on top of being incongruous with the historical character and proportions of the neighborhood, 267 Cumberland has really, this proposal has really tried to push through without much consultation with its neighbors, in fact, and we find that very problematic. And I just want to wrap by saying I can see how this project is a good financial investment for the owner of 267 Cumberland, but I don't see what value it adds to the historic character of the neighborhood or its inhabitants. It seems stylistically out of touch, and its risk to the vegetation and the structural integrity of its neighbors is of serious concern. Thank you for listening.
All right, thank you. And we did receive your letter, and it has been distributed, so. Candace Hawkins.
Good morning, commissioners. Can you hear me okay? My name is Candace Hawkins. I am a neighbor of 267 Cumberland Street, and I am here to voice my opposition to the application. As it is, I believe the application has more than a few problems, but for me, the essential sort of conceptual problem is that it does not take cues from the environment, it doesn't respond, and it lacks consideration. As my time is short today, though, I've chosen to speak about just one important issue. And it's one that I've been advised that advised is typically not of great concern to you. So I do realize that I'm going out on a limb here, but I think it's incredibly important and relevant to the mission of historical preservation. I would like to propose a consideration of what constitutes historical fabric, what is worth preserving. But before I can, I need to give you a more precise picture than is available to you in the applicant's presentation. Page 10 of the presentation shows a site plan, both existing and proposed. In the proposed plan, you see two trees. The tree on the left is a river birch, which sits at the northwest corner of 269 Cumberland. It is believed to be quite old and quite possibly original to the property. The tree is well over 40 feet tall. It's visible from the street. And the base of this tree sits about just 5 feet away from the site of the proposed excavation. Additionally, the size of the canopy as shown in the plan is about half as large as the actual canopy of the tree. The tree on the right is an elm. It sits in the courtyard of the co-op on Lafayette Avenue and is believed to be original to the building, which dates to 1860. It is also well over 40 feet tall and visible from the street. Actually, it's visible from 3 streets. Again, the scale that you see depicted in the application regarding the size of the canopy is so totally inaccurate. In fact, this tree is massive. Its canopy stretches easily 40 feet north, south, and east-west. And the base of the tree, I would say, is approximately 25 to 30 feet from the site of the proposed excavation. The risk posed to both the river birch and the elm by excavation are too serious to skip over. The river birch will most certainly die if excavation takes place at 267 Cumberland, as will all of the plantings along Party Wall, all of which are thought to be original as well. And the risk of serious harm, possibly and probably even death, that the elm would face is not to be underestimated. Think of the dangerous conditions that could arise if the elm and the birch were to be gravely injured in the course of excavation. These trees are, to my mind and to the minds of my neighbors, very much a part of the historic fabric of our shared environment. I am proposing that they be considered as such, as vital components of the historical fabric and worth preserving. I think at the very least, it would make sense to have an arborist perform a condition survey before any excavation were to take place, and for the applicant to rework their application to respond to the history of the environment in which their project Thank you for allowing me this time.
Thank you. Leroy Galloway?
Good morning, everyone. We own the property, my wife and I own the property at 265. If you're looking at it from the street, it's the one on the left, right now.
Can you please speak into the mic? Sorry,
Oh,
just want to make
sorry,
sure
sorry.
everything gets
Okay,
picked
here
up.
we go.
Thanks.
How about now? Can you hear me now? That's good. Great. Okay, our concern number one is if the proposed construction involves digging, we have a concern about underpinning. The building at 265 and 267, you know, like they coexist together via underpinning. Now, if the project is going to, let's say, go at least below, under that, we're thinking about the structural integrity. Will it be intact once they finish? Now, that is a major concern. Now, if the project does get approved, now we would require, my wife and I, a structural engineer to perform their test before the project begins and when the project completes. We want to make sure there's no variation in the measurement. Now, one of the problems is if there is a variation, how do you correct it? Or can you correct it? Because, you know, if a building is not stable, so it's not really marketable. It could be, but, you know, it's very low market. Now, concern number two, the walkway between the 265 and 267, it doesn't exceed 4 feet. So the question is, if based on what you're planning to do, how will you get the equipment in there? If it's less than 4 feet, you're going to need some sort of heavy equipment. Now, question is, if it's less than 4 feet, you're going to damage the walls on my building. Now, I'm just asking, can the construction manager guarantee me that he can put up a protector covering on my building that will exceed the height of any material or machinery that's going to come in and go out between that walkway? Or if he goes through the building itself, I mean, I don't have an issue with it, but if he goes through the walkway, I have an issue. And the structural damage is the main thing. And like I said, the engineer, our structural engineer will do the test before and after if the project is approved. And I would like to know if there's any variations, what are you prepared to do?
Okay, well, we'll have the responses after
Oh,
everyone has spoken.
that's my main concern. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. All right, Kenny Uloa?
Hi, everyone. My name is Kenny Uloa. I live in 147C Lafayette, which is the tiny little house that we guys noticed on the thing. My wife purchased this place 10 years ago. I moved in 5 years ago. We own a second home in New York. I'm a long life New Yorker. Basically, the structure. My home is quite old enough that though it has attended over the years with tuck and pointing alike, I fear that the excavation to the structure so close to my home could cause irreparable damage, air quality, mosquitoes, and light. Because of the location of my home, the backyard and surrounding brownstones are smaller than typical. Therefore, the proposed extension of 267 will greatly affect the quality and character and addresses on Lafayette. And the extension will create less air movement, which is already an issue, and allow less sunlight, which is already an issue. Let's see, the addition creates a pinch point of only a few feet of airflow into mine and the neighboring backyards. The next part is trees. Additionally, there are many large trees within the interior of the block that are quite close to 267 Cumberland. One large birch tree and one massive elm tree, which is well over 100 years old. We actually had an arborist come take a look at it, and it's pretty much been there since the building's been there. The elm tree branches hang directly over our roof, which should the work impact it in any way that causes harm, I fear not only for its life, but also the surrounding structures, as they could severely damage if the trees were to fall or lose a limb. I mean, we've all seen this in Brooklyn. It's very dangerous. And lastly, it's the character. It is my belief that the scale of the proposal, even at the newly proposed 3 stories tall, is out of character with the historic nature of the neighborhood and sets a bad precedence for an already overdeveloped borough overrun by investment opportunities instead of sustainable long-term plans. Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. And we also received the letter from Crystal Ellis as well.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Simeon Bankoff.
Good morning, Commissioners. Simeon Bankoff, Historic Districts Council. HTC recommends the proposed rear yard extension be reduced to 2 stories in order to be more appropriate to its 1863 row house. Removing the top floor would make this addition better fit the scale of this handsome but relatively modest looking house. Additionally, the overall appearance of this addition is altogether too busy, with too many balconies and utilizing too many materials. We also found that the cantilevered roof deck to be slightly awkward and unnecessary. This proposal will be well served by a reduction in height and a simplification in materials.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Yes, Krista Belgoff.
Krista Belgoff for the Society for the Architecture of the City. I certainly hope that the Commission will review the proposed excavation with expert opinion within and without the Commission, and do as little damage as possible to the very old elms of Brooklyn. May perhaps not fit the definition of what you're protecting, but they really are what you're protecting, and you should take care. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this application? Okay, all right, so with respect to the excavation, and I'll have you respond to that also, but you know, the Department of Buildings is the main agency that ensures safety during excavation and develops the plans, but we also can take a look at it. We retain a structural engineer, and we can take a look at the drawings as well. But I think if you can go ahead and respond to some of the comments we've heard about the size of it relative to the context, the visibility, the compliance of the railing, the excavation concerns, and while not technically under our purview, we've heard some comments about the trees and access. So if you want to address those two, that would be fine.
Sure, of course, thank you. I guess
and I'm sorry, before we begin, I just also want to note for the record that Community Board 2 in Brooklyn recommends denial of the application due to the size and the objection of the neighboring property owners. And in addition to those we have heard from today, we received 4 additional letters in opposition.
Thank you. Yes. So I'll start with, I guess, the access. So basically, we do have a 2'9" side alley there, so it is very narrow. But we will be doing a full gut renovation of this building. So whenever possible, we'll bring any equipment through the building itself. And any equipment that will go through the side lot will be sure to protect the neighboring property. And that said, all the excavation, this kind of ties into the tree question as well. We're not going to be using any heavy equipment to do this excavation. It's not going to be hand dug, so we're going to be, you know, as careful as humanly possible to go around roots and not damage the trees. You know, we don't want to damage the tree. It's a beautiful tree. So that's on that point. The roof deck, we are proposing a potential roof terrace up there. It would just basically be some greenery and a railing. I don't think anything's going to be visible other than the railing, which there's already a railing on the roof currently on the building that you can see from the street. And we're actually pushing that railing back on the property, so it would be even less visible from the street. And we're proposing to paint it black, really thin metal elements, so, you know, a minimal impact on the block. Sorry, what did I miss?
I think that, well, the visibility, I think if you could just clarify that, maybe it's on slide 15, I think.
So the visibility, we really did do a very thorough investigation of the visibility, and basically you can see the 265 Cumberland has that little gap in the parapet where there's a fence. And in the original proposal, when we were showing a full height addition, you could see just the top corner of the addition. But once we take down the top floor, you really cannot see it at all. And again, you can see in the lower left-hand photo there of the 2 buildings next to each other, how skinny that alleyway is. You know, so we're just proposing to extend that wall. It would be effectively not visible. from the street.
Okay, and then can you just go to slide 15 and just tell us what we're looking at?
Exactly, yeah, so
The next view, the next slide.
Oh, sorry about that. Yes,
There you
this is from Carlton Street, which is the other street on the other side of the block. Basically looking at a street gap through two buildings at a diagonal and trying to really see if there's any way to see the our project, and there really isn't, because like I said, you know, it's all blocked by other structures and vegetation and whatnot. So
And in slide 15, that view is the view of the addition. It's just not visible because of the angle, or is it also that this tree that's been mentioned obscures the view?
it's because of the angle and because of the building that's in between our building and Carlton Street.
All right. Other questions, commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Goldberg.
The siding, is it real wood or is it plastic?
We're looking at a composite wood. So it's wood particles with resin.
Okay, thanks.
All right, if there are no other questions, I think we'll close the hearing. Commissioner Devonshire, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
And Commissioner Chen, would you second it?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the hearing is closed and we'll begin our discussion. And maybe if we could go to either the block plan, maybe the axonometric would be good. I think the block plan does show a variety, but this will show the immediate context. Commissioner Bland, would you start this one?
I will. Thank you. I'm opposed to the current scheme. I think there are a lot of reasons to be worried about this project, the way it's designed right now, and I think a lot of that was brought out in testimony. But I want to principally focus just on one aspect of it, and maybe other commissioners will take other aspects of it. And it's the second floor, or is that the third floor, whatever we call it. It's I guess the bedroom floor. I object to the cantilever idea. It seems to be completely, without precedent. But almost more important than that is it's just too tall and it's too aggrandized. I presume it's a bedroom floor. I don't really know what the plans are. I've forgotten. But it seems to me as if these brownstones all had a parlor floor and upper floors that were subservient to some degree to the parlor floor, and this does not do that. And it's a question of design, but it's also a question of height. So I'll leave my objections at that. Of course, with my history with gardening and Brooklyn Botanic Garden, et cetera, I am very attuned to the issue of the trees, but I'm not sure that that's exactly our purview, but I can't let it go by without at least acknowledging that that's a great worry of mine.
Thank you. Commissioner Jefferson.
Yeah, this is an interesting project because it's the back is different from the front. You obviously went through some design intent to make the back so different. You have a brownstone typology, and then you have a hanging balcony, which is modern. So there's a contradiction there. But I can accept that in terms of just the back. But in terms of good neighbor, I find this project very difficult to accept. I find the height of it too big, and I find the materials. You have a corner stucco, you have brick, the brick doesn't match the sides. I mean, there's an excessive use of material, which could be toned down. But those are my comments. It's just
okay.
A little too much.
Thank you. Commissioner Gustafson.
Yeah, I guess I don't, I certainly agree with Commissioner Bland about the cantilevered balcony. Otherwise, though, I guess I'm just not as offended. And I think we've approved things that are substantially more radically different in terms of design and size than this. So, so other than the balcony, I can approve it as is.
Okay, Commissioner Shamir Bergen.
Yes, I think I agree with Commissioner Gustafson that we have seen these kinds of additions before, but also in this particular donut, there are 3-story additions. I do agree that the cantilevered balcony is excessive, and I actually think that it should either be as tall as proposed, but coplanar, so that there's not a first floor, jutting out into the yard and close to the adjacent extraordinary interior house, or a story less and the full depth. It's one or the other, but the both seem to me to be too much.
Okay. Commissioner Hudson.
I agree with some of the prior testimony. I think, or comments from the commissioners. I think overall, the addition overwhelms the original house. So I think either dropping it a floor or bringing it back to be coplanar with the house on the right and not having it project beyond that would be more appropriate. But I think right now it's too overwhelming, and I agree that the cantilevered balcony is really out of context, out of character.
Commissioner Bergen.
I like John, feel that this is, while it's perhaps not the most subtle potential design, it's well within the kind of things that we have approved on blocks of this nature, which is a variegated block, lots of different scales and sizes. So I think that all of the suggestions that have been made here would make it a better scheme, but I could pretty much prove it as is. I think that the balcony is peculiar, but again, I would be okay with it as is. I think that if we're going to make suggestions about modifications, I think the use of the composite wood adds a peculiar detail level to it. It's kind of not typically seen that kind of thing in historic districts, and I think it just kind of adds another layer of peculiarity to something that's, if it were brick, it would certainly be more normative. I don't know if it's necessarily something that renders it inappropriate, but I think in composite, clearly they're not going to get a quorum voting yes today. So
that's something else they
think
can
about
study.
it. Oh, and in terms of the tree, I think that it's totally not within our purview to base our opinions on plantings and things of that nature, unless it's specifically cited in the designation. But I certainly think there are things they can do to take their neighbors' concerns into consideration, which might include reducing the amount of excavation, the extension of the excavation, if roots are found. An arborist assessment is clearly something that they should strongly consider doing. It's a no-brainer.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Devonshire.
Yeah, I agree with Michael about the composite material. There are just so many things going on with this addition that are non-contextual at all. I agree with Adi's statement and Ann's statement about making the first floor coplanar. And I think by making it coplanar, it will help preserve the donut, which includes those two trees, which surely will be killed if the canopies are even as shown in the drawings. So I think they need to bring it back.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Chen.
I think there's a variety of opinion. I think I can go along with whatever the majority decide. I think that they are all excellent suggestions.
All right, thank you. Okay, so I think while there is a varied context here, and there's a lot of variety within this block, and the commission has approved additions that sort of reflect that and fit in with that, I think that while we've had a couple of commissioners who are pretty supportive of it as is, with some tweaks, there are others that have concerns about height or depth and materials. So we'll take no action today, and you should continue to work with the staff, and we'll have you make some revisions and come back, revisions that respond to the comments we've heard today. And again, I would also encourage you to continue to work with the neighbors to address their concerns, about the tree and other issues and access. Okay, thank you. So we'll take no action and we'll move to the next item.
Okay, the next item is Preservation Department item number 3, LPC 21-05095, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Brooklyn, Block 436, Lot 46, 347 President Street in the Carroll Gardens Historic District. This is a neo-Gothic style row house built in 1878, and the application is to construct a rear yard addition.
My name is Dick Boshin, and
Oh, can you just speak a little louder and into the mic, just with the air conditioners and the air purifiers and the mask? It's just hard to hear. That's better. Thank
that's
you.
right. Okay. My name is Dick Boshin. I'm the architect for the project. And first of all, I just want to say it's really nice to see everybody in the flesh and in this room. That's pretty wonderful. This is a one-story addition on the back of a row house in Carroll Garden. It's one of 14 that were built all at the same time in 1878. They're relatively narrow, they're about 16 feet wide, the lots are very deep. So you'll see that there's still a 40-foot backyard after the addition. And the other thing that's kind of nice for me in this case is that this is actually the childhood home of one of the clients who grew up here. So the family's been there for years. And this is the properties in the northeast corner of, on the upper left, you can see the northeast corner of the district. It's also on the north side of President Street, on the lower side, near the east end. The darker part is the red property. The darker part in the back is the addition. It extends 13 feet, 8 inches into the rear yard, and it's 1 story high, which is actually lower than it appears in the front because the land drops down towards the back. Oops, wrong way. These are, on the left is the existing elevation, and on the right is the proposed elevation. It's a relatively simple massing. The exterior finish is 3-coat stucco, which is true for most of the other additions that you'll see that are in this row.
I'm sorry, can you really try to speak up and into the mic? We're getting indications that it's very muffled on our audio. Thank you very much. Sorry.
This up a little.
You can take the mic off the stand if that's easier for you.
Okay. What I was saying is that as far as finishes go, it's a 3-part stucco finish that will be painted to match the color of the existing rear facade, which is pretty typical for the other extensions in this area. And there's a large window, it's a door opener with black aluminum and regular clear glass. Going back to this one, you can see that there are a number of other additions in the area. The lower right-hand part is where the 14 identical houses are. Oops, in the wrong direction. These are views from the street, and on the upper, the upper left is from the lower right on the left drawing. That's looking at the front of the house in the summer. You can't see the house or any of it. And the reason we're including that is if you look at number 4 on the right, there are 2 air conditioners on the roof. Those are just barely visible from this spot in the winter. Just the top of the larger one is visible. Going to the middle, on the left is the current situation. On the right, it shows the extension, which is again going to be just slightly visible above the fence, the brick fence that's there. And that's the middle. That's the middle of the three views in the diagram. The upper view in the diagram is the lower pair of pictures. The left is the existing condition. You'll see that there's a building on Hay Street that blocks most of the view. And you can't see the addition at all, and you can just barely see the top of the larger air conditioner. That's the view on the right. On the left is the existing rear facade, and the right is the proposed rear facade. And you'll see that the floor level is stepped down. The interior of this level is very short. It's about 7 foot 10 inches from floor to ceiling. So we stepped it down to be a ground level to provide a little more height inside. But that doesn't change the roof.
Okay, so the view is from White Street where you see the top of it in the context of some other rear yard additions.
That's correct.
Okay, commissioners, do we have any questions? All right, and I don't think we have anyone signed up to speak, but is there anyone here? No, okay. All right, and we did receive a letter from Brooklyn Community Board 6 recommending approval of the application as presented. So if there are no final questions, I think we'll just move to close the hearing and begin our discussion. Okay, so Commissioner Bland, would you make a motion to close the hearing? So moved. Thank you. Commissioner Gustafson, you seconded.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so the hearing is closed and we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Jefferson, would you start this one? Sure.
The design is simple. The design is simple and clear, and I can approve it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Gustafson.
Yeah, I'll add to that, minimally visible and not overreaching, so I think it's fine as is.
Thank you. Commissioner Shinobara.
I agree with those comments. I agree as well.
Okay.
Agreed.
Agree.
Me too.
All right, and I agree as well. I think it's modest in size and only minimally visible in the context of other one-story projections. So Commissioner Jefferson, would you make the motion?
Sure. In a matter of LPC-2105-095, 347 President Street, Carroll Garden Historic District. Applications to construct a rear yard addition. I note that the building style, scale, and material and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historical character of the Carroll Garden Historic District. I recommend approval, finding that the proposed work will not eliminate any significant architectural features, that the proposed rear yard addition will only minimally be visible from White Street, that the northern one-story height of the rear addition will preserve the upper floors and maintain the building historic relationship with other buildings in the row. That the desired material of the proposed addition, clad in red stucco to harmonize with the brick facade, will maintain the scale and height of the individual row house. That the depth of the addition will be consistent with the varying projections of existing rear extensions in this block, only half of which is in the historic district, and the proposed addition will not diminish the central green space, and that the proposed work will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the building or the Carroll Garden Historic District.
Thank you. Will you second it, Commissioner Gustafson?
Second.
Okay, and Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll.
Aye.
Commissioner Bland.
Aye.
Commissioner Bergen.
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin. Commissioner Chen.
Aye.
Commissioner Devonshire.
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum.
Aye.
Commissioner Gustafson.
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
With 9 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
That's approved, thank you. And we'll move to the next item.
Okay, the next item is LPC 21-00717, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Queens, Block 8064, Lot 76. 29 Center Drive, the Allen-Beville House, individual landmark, also in the Douglaston Historic District. This is a Greek Revival, Italianate style freestanding house with attached garage, built circa 1848 to 1850. And the application is to modify and enlarge the garage, modify porch steps and retaining wall. And this was advertised as also reconstructing a cupola, but that was actually part of a prior commission approval. And that work is underway and being reviewed by the staff currently. So it's the garage changes as well as porch steps and retaining wall for today. And the applicant may begin.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jose Diaz. I'm a project manager for TF Cusinelli and Filetti Architects, who is the applicant on this application. I am also a registered architect. And today we'll be presenting this single-family house with some modifications in the Douglaston Historic District. Here we're showing a block plan showing the property. It fronts 3 streets, Center Drive, Forest, and Zero Lane. The main view is on Center Drive. The other 2 streets are mostly covered by landscaping and existing trees. Here's a detailed site plan where we show the existing condition on the left and all the proposed modifications on the right. We are proposing to extend the attached garage towards the front and as well as towards the back, and renovate the terrace on top of that. There's also a porch that will be extending that sits on top of the garage. Here's some historic photographs from the 1940s and 1980s. You see that the house as it looks today, it's very similar to what the house was back then. Here's a photo montage showing the proposed modifications. We'll be extending the hedge on top of the retaining wall, as well as extending the porch that sits on top of the garage. We'll be putting little railings as well to comply with code. Here is a closer look into the garage area that we will be extending, as well as putting those new railings. And you can see better the porch that's being extended, following the same architectural styles and details of the existing. This is a view on the back side of the house. We'll also be extending the garage that way and adding a new garage door. And this is a closer look of that. These are some views from Cedar Lane. They're mostly covered with landscaping and existing hedges. And here we're showing some existing details of the porch, the columns, the steps, all of which will be incorporating into the extension and the modification of the porch steps. Here on the east elevation, this is the east side. It's the main facade. We will be extending and adding railings to those front steps to match the west side porch. And this is the drawing with those changes. You'll see also there the garage extension and the new railing and the extended porch. This is the same view with the landscaping and the existing hedges. This is the proposed of the same elevation. This is a close-up of the existing and the proposed porch. Those posts and railings will be matching the ones on the west side of the house. This is a view on the south elevation of the existing, and then on the proposed shows the extension of the garage, the railings on the terrace, and some landscaping to minimize the expanse of the brick on that side. This is a view of the porch on the existing and proposed. The porch is being extended, and we're adding those the railings. This is a view of the existing west elevation with those wider steps that we'll be bringing into the front, east elevation as well. And it shows the backside view of the garage. North side elevation and proposed. We'll only doing here, we're closing the basement windows. There's some views of the existing condition of the cupola and the view from the street. So some of the modifications that are happening in the inside of the house. A view of detail of the driveway. The existing driveway is just dirt. It's unpaved, and we will be proposing a concrete driveway, the color of which will match the existing color of the sidewalk in the area. And this is a detail of the terrace and garage. That's all.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions?
Are you changing the cupola at all or just restoring it?
Yes, we're proposing to raise the cupola to bring it back to its historic condition, but this will be handled at staff level.
And we know what it originally looked like.
We do.
I'm sorry?
Thank you.
Yes, we do.
Just a quick architectural question. The west and east, which is the dominant entrance? Just curiosity, I park my car and I come to your home. Which way do I go? Which is the main entrance and how do I get to it?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Which is the primary facade?
The primary facade is the east front. Show you this picture right here. They look pretty much exactly the same, but like I said, the back area it's very covered with hedges and existing trees and landscaping, and it's not used as a primary entrance.
Okay, so but the east and the west both have porches, and
Yes.
your proposal is to extend the porch on the south.
Yes,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
All right, any other questions? Okay, so we'll move to public testimony now. Simeon Bankoff?
Good morning, Commissioners. Simeon Bankoff, Historic District Council. HDC compliments the applicants on an excellent presentation, which is very clear. On the whole, we found this proposal to be appropriate, and we commend the restoration of the cupola, whether or not it's happening at staff level. It's great. With regard to the garage covering, further articulating the cornice would make a more graceful transition from the wood materials above to the brick below. We were a little concerned by the odd reuse of the sort of what might be referred to as the brick entablature. Additionally, the column spacing on the south facade, drawing A17, seems somewhat awkward. We recommend restudying the configuration and perhaps adding another column to the south porch extension. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? All right, and just to note for the record, we did receive a letter from Community Board 11, which had a number of questions. Most of the questions were actually related to work that's being handled at staff level. And we received a letter from the Victorian Society of New York supporting all components of the application, with the exception of the almost full extension of the south porch. And we chose to use matching balustrades on the deck over the garage as opposed to a simpler balustrade. Okay, so would you like to address some of those comments? I think we've heard about the balustrades, but also the entablature on that garage and that sort of transition between the railing and the garage, and also maybe look at the south porch again to look at column spacing and width.
Yeah, I think we're open to working that out a little better. Once I get back to the office, and working with the staff, we're open to.
Can we go to the south elevation? Okay, actually, this is good because you can see both here. You can see the railing and its relationship to the other railings and the garage and the spacing. Okay, commissioners, any final questions? No. Okay, Commissioner Shamir Brown, would you make a motion to close the hearing? So moved. Thank you. And Commissioner Holford-Smith, would you second it? Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed and we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Goldblum, would you start this one?
Sure. I mean, I think in general, these guys did a great job with an amazing house. The house itself looks like it's in pretty good condition, and the modifications to me seem sensitive and appropriate and thoughtful. I'm forever grateful for their restoration of the cupola. That's really going to be a major improvement to this house and an asset for the district. I think that my only area of concern does relate to the south porch. I think the garage addition is totally fine and relatively hard to see. The driveway, all that other stuff, the other facades are fine. I do think that the suggestion Simeon had about the column respacing is certainly worth thinking about, and I think the applicant should simply use the spacing on the other porches as a springboard. Another thing you could consider, and the only thing I kind of worried about a little bit was the proximity of the south porch to the porch to its right, which my calendar directions are not right, but that one. Yeah, it kind of comes very close to that front facade. So if it wound up that the south porch moved a little further away from the front facade, that wouldn't be a terrible thing either. And the last thing I would say is that on a job like this, it's all about the details. And the applicant should work closely and carefully with staff, because if you look at the drawings, they're kind of all over the map in terms of some of the columns show one kind of capital, another kind of capital, another kind of, just like drill into the details with the staff to make sure that you're replicating it really, really well. Because if you don't, it'll look like really bad.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Devonshire.
I agree with everything that Commissioner Goldblum has said. If I could just add one small detail to the cupola. I know it's been worked on by the staff. The window sills look to be about 4 inches off the roof deck. When there is snow buildup there, the snow will go beyond the window sills. They will have a maintenance nightmare forever. So I would suggest putting a piece of fascia at least 9 or 10 inches high at the bottom.
Okay, great, thank you. Commissioner Chen.
Yeah, I agree with all the comments. It's great that, and also the testimony from his district council.
Great.
What a house. Wow. I think this is a remarkable application and proposal. I've heard the tweakings, they're just tweakings, I think, and I'm sure I would agree, but overall, this is a remarkable house. I never knew about it and want to go see it, actually. And the cupola, of course, is to be applauded, even though we don't even get to applaud it. So I'm applauding this great cupola, even though the staff work on it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Jefferson.
It's an incredible improvement over the original, and the cupola is magnificent. One small issue, which is tiny, is that there's a circumstantial piece next to the garage. There's a kind of an angle cut by the garage. And I wish you would take a look at it, because everything here is just classical and simple geometry. But that one piece, because of the driveway, the bend in the driveway, you have changed the corner that you made an angle. So take a look at it. Maybe you can't change it, but it's just too circumstantial. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Gustafson.
I want to live in this house. I agree with what all the commissioners have said. Just one comment. They did a really neat thing with, I'm a car guy. They did a really neat thing with the garage here, putting the second garage door on the back. So it becomes a drive-through garage, enabling them to actually, without destroying the existing garage, get themselves access to a place where they could put another car. Which is a very creative result that respects the building as it is, but gives them the opportunity they need. So I think that's a terrific, cute little idea.
Great. Commissioner Shamir Bergen.
Yes, I agree with all the comments and the careful consideration for this beautiful house. I have to say that, though, that I do not think that the extension of this side of porch is actually appropriate. In that, I think that this is not a wrap porch. It's so clearly a two-sided, two sides of the building have this kind of edge-to-edge porch condition. And what Commissioner Goldblum said about, not approaching as closely, I think actually is really important. That there's an awkward situation there that it's not, again, it's not a wrap porch. It's not a wrap porch. It's not symmetrical enough. It's not symmetrical. So I would say if possible to completely pull it back to close to the existing sort of smaller or partial porch on that side. And that would be my only request that be modified. Otherwise, everything, as everyone has said, is very positive.
Okay, Commissioner Wolf-Smith.
I agree with pretty much everything that's been said already. I think that Adi and Michael had a really good point about the two porches sort of touching at the corner. So I think they could work with staff on perhaps giving that some breathing room. Also, I think, like Michael said, the details are going to be really important. For instance, under that wood railing in the existing, there's a wood fascia board. So details like that should be continued around to help the transition. And I know this is a staff level thing, but the cupola, the windows looked to be narrower than they're proposing with some clapboard in between. So I think that's something they could work with staff on. But overall, it's a great project.
Okay, great. So I think we have the majority of commissioners are in support of all components, including extending the porch, but in looking at the spacing of the columns, looking at providing a little bit of distance as well, and then also continuing to work with the staff to resolve all the details on the components that are before us, as well as the components that they're reviewing at staff level. Commissioner Goldblum.
Regarding 29 Center Drive, the Allen-Beville house, an individual landmark in the Douglaston Historic District, the application is to construct additions, modify the garage, porch, steps, and retaining wall, and reconstruct a cupola. I note that the building's style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Douglaston Historic District. I further note that the proposed cupola work is being undertaken pursuant to a staff level approval. I recommend approval with modifications, finding that the work will not eliminate any significant architectural features of the building or site. For the modest enlargement of the garage will not draw undue attention to this modern structure or detract from the primary primacy of the historic house and landscaping, or the extension of the porch roof and proposed columns will be in keeping with such features at side porches at houses of this style and age, and will relate well to the design of the house in terms of placement, size, material, details, and finish. But the replacement of the stairs at the center and southern end of the porch at the east facade will be well scaled to the house and site, and their construction will eliminate a significant amount of landscaping. And the proposed guardrails and doors at the garage and the stairs at the porch will be in keeping with the features of the historic house in terms of details, materials, and finish, thereby helping to unify the modern elements with the adjoining historic house. However, the applicant will work with staff to refine the woodworking details, wood trim details, and will explore with staff the spacing of the columns on the new proposed south facade, and attempting to, if possible, increase the distance from that right side corner of the south facade to the front facade of the building.
All right, thank you. And Commissioner Hopwood-Smith, would you second that?
I second it.
Thank you. Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll.
Aye.
Commissioner Bland.
Aye.
Commissioner Bergen.
Aye.
Commissioner Chen.
Aye.
Commissioner Devonshire.
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum.
Aye.
Commissioner Gustafson. Aye. Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
With 9 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
All right, so that's approved, and please continue to work with the staff on the spacing and proportions of the porch on the south, which will also sort of help inform how to pull it back a little bit from the front, and to continue to work on all of the details with the staff. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move to the next item. This is item number 5, LPC 21-04351, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Queens, block 8095, lot 42, 100 Prospect Avenue in the Douglaston Historic District. This is an arts and craft shingle-style house built in 1910, and the application is to construct a retaining wall and fencing at the rear yard and to widen the driveway.
Good day, Commissioners. How are you doing? My name is Ray, and I represent Tribeca Architects. I'm here with the owner of 100 Prospect Avenue, named Gretch. We're here just to present the installation, or proposing an installation of a pool area, which will have a retaining wall, stair area, and some modifications to the fence area around there. So let's get this going. All right, right here we have the existing photos. This is from landmarks at time of preservation.
Could you speak into the microphone, please?
Right here we have the existing photos from landmarks. It's from the time of designation. So this is a front view, and then just another front view in the angle. Over here we have more pictures of the designated photos from landmarks. Just to mention, we're not making any changes to the house. It's just showing these photos. Right here, we have a key plan, and we're going to be looking at different photos from different areas around this key plan. We have Circle Street, Cherry Street, and Prospect Avenue. Okay, over here, we have the existing photo of the house as it is right now. On photo 1, it's just the house. On the bottom, we're seeing most of the greenery from Cherry Street. Right here on photo 3 and 4, we're showing the garage area, and also it's on the bottom level on section 4, on the photo 4. That's actually on the left-hand side is where the pool area will be installed. Now, there's a wire mesh gated area around there, and we're proposing to change that into a wooded gate, 6 foot high as per DOB, and well, it just is going to block out the pool area. All right. Right here, we're getting the views from Cherry Street, just around the corner north. And it's just to show that most of the greenery is actually going to be blocking the area that we're going to be installing. That we're going to be installing the pool area. Oh, also to mention, when you see the proposed plan, you'll see that we're actually going to be planting green giants around that area. So it will be very, very difficult to see anything that's going on over there. This is another view from Prospect Avenue, just showing the greenery and the house. All right, this is an existing site plan. Well, it speaks for itself here. Right here is our proposed site plan. And as you can see, we're actually recessed way within the property where you have the shaded area where the pool area is. Right behind it is the retaining wall. That retaining wall actually won't be shown because you'll have a fence on top of it and the infill in front of it will cover the retaining wall. So the landscape will just kind of smooth over. But also mentioning the green giants, it will block out the entire area if you can see anything. Also, we're showing on the bottom, which we'll see on the next slide, modifications to the driveway area. And even though it's a little hard to see, the entire pool area is encompassed by wooden fence. All right, this is a close-up of the driveway. On top, we have the existing, and on bottom, we have the proposed. So what we looked into the bylaws and we saw that we can actually include a turnaround into there, and also that we can widen the driveway to get to the garage area. This is a 2-car garage. Right now, it's not acting, it's not working the way we want to because you have to kind of pull out, and it's just difficult. So this is why we're helping James accomplish this, all right? Right here is actually photos from across the street, the one on the top, and the bottom is the adjacent property to show that we're still keeping the flow of the neighborhood and that making the garage, the driveway a little bit larger won't actually interrupt any of the flow of the neighborhood. Okay, here we have the existing front elevation. What I want to bring your attention to is just the left-hand side where you have the fence area. So right in between the garage, you'll have those fences actually change into wooden fences. We're going to paint them white. So just going to go with the same color scheme of the house. And on the right-hand side, we're still keeping the existing chain link fence. Also, I do want to mention, I'll just move on to the next slide. I do want to mention, because this is the proposed showing exactly what I was mentioning. I do want to mention on the left-hand side, there's going to be so much greenery around there. It's actually going to be difficult to see the majority of the fence. On the earlier photos, it showed that. All right, here we have an existing section. To the left, you have the dwelling, and then you have the area where it says a new grade. So we're going to be excavating that area, and that's where the pool area is going to go. And when you go further right, you'll see a little retaining wall. This is an existing retaining wall that actually goes all around the property. And the street is 240th Street, also known as Circle Street. Okay, this is the proposed yard section. So what we're showing here is from the left, we have the dwelling. Then where you see the dimensioned area is the pool area, and you see the fence. And on the right, you'll notice that we have a little bit of infill. That's to actually cover up the entire retaining wall. So you won't, let's say if you actually could see anything, you won't see anything but the fenced area. We'll get another shot of this in a couple of slides. Also, we just got our little guy all the way across the street from 240th Street to show what he can see. Okay, this is actually from Cherry Street looking at the property. So it's just moving back from the section, and you'll just see that existing retaining wall. All of these photos, all of these elevations are actually not showing the giant greens, but when they're there, it's like everything is different. The only thing you will be able to see is actually the dwelling. All right, this is the photo I was talking about. So this is taken from, well, the elevation I was talking about, this is taken from an elevated area so that you can see if somebody were to like happen to climb a higher ladder or they decide to take a drone to a certain height, all you can see is the gated area. You can see the garage and the house. The pool area is actually just surrounded by a gated area, unless you go higher, which we'll have another photo for that also. Okay, these photos are actually just showing you the different seasons and how the greenery works around there, and just to get a sense of how everything's working out. But I do want to bring your attention to the left photo, the further left photo. That is a drone shot of the property, and right behind the stairs is actually where the pool area will be installed. Okay, here, more seasonal photos. We're in fall, and on the right, we have spring. On the bottom, it's just a little cloudy, that's all. Right here, we have a winter season photo, just to show, you know, once we have the greenery, it's not gonna really change much, but only the house will be really visible to the street level. All right, right here, we're actually showing the rear yard where we're going to be excavating to install the pool and the retaining wall and the stairs and everything that encompasses that area. All right, on the top, we're showing the gate, but that will be painted white. It's just really showing you what type of wood we're using. And on the bottom, this is a bluestone finish that actually goes up to the house. Not visible, just on the floor, right? Bluestone panels. And finally, this is just a section, if anybody wanted to just dissect what's actually going into the foundation wall and the stairs. All right, that's pretty much it.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions, commissioners? Okay, and no one signed up to speak. Is there anyone who'd like to speak? Simeon Pankoff?
Good morning, Commissioner Simeon Bancroft. I'm actually just relaying some comments from our colleagues in Douglaston who are unable to be here. The principal concerns they seem to have to do with the topography of this kind of confusing presentation, and whether or not what's going on is sort of raising the yard to try to hide the pool is really kind of what appears to be happening. And they've got concerns, and just watching the presentation, I'm a little confused on what the actual effect of this would be visually. And as topography is a major feature of the Douglaston Historic District, I simply bring that up.
Okay, thank you. All right. And we did receive a resolution from Community Board 11 recommending approval of the application depending on the correction of the footing encroachment and the determination of the rear yard offset meeting zoning. And I think when they're talking about the footing, they're talking about the footing of the toe wall that encroaches into the easterly lot. And they say should be corrected by moving the wall pool 1 foot to the west or moving the rear property line 1 foot to the east. Maybe you can explain that a little bit. And then we have a letter from the DMA that talks about the saying that it now is in compliance with the deed restrictions. And I think part of the reason they're signing off on it is because of the change we made to the retaining wall. The very change that we heard in testimony asking about sort of concealing the retaining wall.
So you're just speaking about concealing the retaining wall.
I think it seems that the Douglas Manor Association, which reviews the deed restrictions, has signed off on the application saying that now that there's shrubbery on top of the retaining wall, it complies. So that sort of goes, I think, to the raising of the grade that was raised in testimony. So maybe you could just explain that a little bit.
I would like to clarify, we're not actually raising the grade. We're just filling it back to where it was. So right here is the reason where we show the grade area as it is right now. And if you look, I know I'm not overlapping them, but as you look, it's actually under the same. So you're just looking at the area where it says infill. it's the same exact area. So it's not actually being raised, it's just making sure that we cover it because we understand the neighbors don't want to see this, even though it's not gonna be seen at all. But we just wanted to honor the neighborhood and said, okay, fine, let's cover the retaining wall area, and we have the fence and we have the shrubbery around.
Okay, great.
Is that clear?
I think so, yeah. And then the community board was talking about the toe wall footing encroaching into the easterly lot.
I'll have James step up for that.
Okay.
Hi, James Gretsch. I'm the owner of the property. As far as the community board 11, they had a technical question about the foundation.
You have to wear your mask in the public hearing, I'm sorry, yeah.
They had a technical question about the retaining wall, because this is actually two separate lots. It's two different lots, and where the retaining wall is going, it's going right on the property line. They had more of a technical question saying, giving me guidance basically that they didn't think our proposal would get approved by the DOB because it needs to be offset from the other lot. But in fact, these plans have already been completely approved by the DOB. The only remaining objection is LPC. So it was a call out for them that actually wasn't correct.
Okay, all right. Thank you. You're not necessarily under our purview either, but it does seem that it's addressed and the DMA's concern is addressed as well. And they've signed off on it. Okay, any other questions, commissioners? All right, so let's have a motion to close the hearing. Commissioner Holford-Smith, would you make the motion? So moved. Commissioner Goldblum, would you second it?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so the hearing is closed and we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Gustafson.
Thank you, commissioners.
Middle of a sip of coffee.
I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. Seems that this is porch day. We have another beautiful porch that dominates this house. Nothing to do with the application. I think the applicant did a terrific job of concealing this the significant bit of work they're doing with excavation, et cetera. Whether it's with plantings or it's with the regrading, there's barely any visibility whatsoever. And I have no issues with this at all. I am reminded, however, that we go through weeks and weeks without seeing any properties in front of us that actually are on hills. You'd think that New York was completely flat. And this sort of reminds you, and you have to keep that in mind as we take a look at these views around the property from all sides, that you're really looking up and you'll never be able to see what they're doing.
Thank you, Commissioner Bergen.
Yes, I agree. I think this is well done, and I understand that the clarification that you made, that you're following the profile of the topography and filling in with the retaining wall. That makes sense to me, and I think it's not going to be visible, and I think it's a nice addition. Well done.
Thank you.
I think it's appropriate.
Okay.
No comments.
I agree. I think that the applicant might want to look at, I mean, it was kind of hard for me to judge visibility because of the, very unique topography and the setting and the lack of composite rendering images that we normally see. I do worry a little bit about the view from Prospect Avenue. The new driveway is rather expansive, the amount of paving, whereas now it's very landscaped in and very, very dense. No, I mean, I guess it's the driveway view, the view toward the garage. There you go. If you look on the left there, I mean, it's very green and dense, and that's going to become heavily paved with the fence right at the front. And what I was going to suggest that if in discussions with staff that becomes a concern, the fence and the line of the fence and the gate could set back from the face of the garage without damaging anything at all in the proposal, and you could put the landscape in front of it, and it would be less jarringly different from what you have now, and it would certainly comply with code. But I think it's appropriate as is, and it's a good application.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Devonshire.
I think it's appropriate.
Okay. Commissioner Chen.
Same here.
And Commissioner Bland.
Well, I was just going to add, it's not only a morning of porches, but of porches in Douglaston. What a wonderful series of two houses that we've just looked at.
Yeah.
Completely appropriate.
Okay, great. All right, so I think, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Everardo. Please go ahead.
Appropriate.
You're okay. Okay. We're so far away from each other now. All right, Commissioner Gustafson, would you make a motion to approve this application? Nice job. And, you know, we'll approve it as is, but if you do want to think about the fencing gate and their relationship to the driveway, you can continue to work with the staff on that.
In the matter of LPC 21-043511 100 Prospect Avenue in the Douglaston Historic District, the application is to construct a retaining wall and fencing at the rear yard and to widen the driveway. I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Douglaston Historic District. I recommend approval, finding that the work will not eliminate any significant architectural or historic features of the house or site, that the retaining walls will be largely concealed from view by the regrading, that the placement of the fencing on top of the retaining walls will be consistent with the placement of rear yard fencing found throughout the historic district, that the fencing will be typical in terms of material design, height, and details, that the pool will not be visible from a public thoroughfare, that the stairs and retaining walls, if visible from a public thoroughfare at all, will only be minimally visible at a distance through gaps between evergreen plantings, that the widened driveway will be compatible with the garage in terms of placement and size, and will be screened by evergreen plantings, and will be in keeping with the width of other driveways at this block, that the new paving will match the paving historically found in driveways throughout the historic district in terms of material, finish, and pattern, that none of the work will result in the loss of mature trees, significantly reduce the amount of green space at the site, or detract from significant landscape improvements, and that the work will not detract from the special architectural or historic character of the house, site, or historic district. And we ask only that the applicant consider the landscaping and fence relationship at the new driveway.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Bland, would you second that motion? Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll.
Aye.
Commissioner Bland. Aye. Commissioner Shamir Boerum.
Aye.
Commissioner Chen. Aye. Commissioner Devonshire.
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum.
Aye.
Commissioner Gustafson. Aye. Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Holbert Smith.
Aye.
With 9 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
That's approved. Thank you and good luck.
Okay, we're now going to move to item number 6, LPC 21-06618, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 214, Lot 7502, 145 Hudson Street in the Tribeca West Historic District. This is a 1920s industrial style factory with Art Deco style elements designed by Renwick, Aspinwall and Guard and built in 1929. And the application is to alter the entrance.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Mike Rosani. I'm with Michael's Enrish Architects on behalf of the applicant of this alteration and on behalf of the board. So as Corey mentioned, this application is to install a new set of vestibule doors at the front entrance to the building at 145 Hudson Street. Go through some of the slides so we can get accustomed with the location. So you can see here, we're looking at that arched opening. Right now, there's a recessed set of entrance doors step back from the front of the building. Tax photograph, unfortunately, doesn't give us too much information in terms of what was there historically. We do have some, we can go back to these slides with more reference later. So this is the existing conditions of the building. So you can see now there's an existing set of doors that enters into the lobby of the building, recessed from the front arch. And right now the doors are not built to code as they are double doors that are not 3 feet each. And they're not centered on the opening. So what we are proposing to do is to install a new set of doors at the front that are centered on the archway. You can see in plan how we're trying to get that alignment put together. So you can see on the left-hand side the existing conditions in the plan view. On the right side is what is proposed to install the new set of doors at the exterior face of the arch. And the primary reason for doing this outside of the aesthetics
is to improve the security of the building. And it also becomes a bit of a garbage dump right now. So a lot of garbage and wind blows a lot of trash in there. And at night, there's a lot of concern for the tenants because, it's a dark kind of space that people feel that they could be attacked in. So on top of the security and the cleanliness of the building and then the aesthetic value, that's what's driving this. This is a proposed interior elevation of the interior vestibule doors. So you can see on the left-hand side, we're going to be removing that existing infill, installing a new storefront window with new double doors. And there's some details of the profile of the doors, which we're trying to match the adjacent storefront. So that was one of the comments at our community board hearing, was to improve the profile of our new doors and storefront to match what's existing on either side of this bay. So then we can go back to the rendering, which gives you a good look at what the proposed would look like. And the left and right are the green storefronts, which is what we're trying to match. And these photographs were just to show that, we find in the district that oftentimes not only the finish of the brass doors, but also some of these arched entrances do have doors at the streetscape. Questions?
Thank you. Questions? Yes,
Do you
Commissioner
have
Goldberg.
any, apart from the photograph of the other building, do you have any basis for deciding that these should be brass or bronze or whatever?
No.
Right now? It was an aesthetic choice.
It was an aesthetic choice.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Bergen,
Thank
sorry.
you. Clarification, maybe I missed. Are you actually proposing to bring the door surface to the front?
Yes.
Forward?
So let's go to the plan.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay, now I can see it.
Yeah.
Right, and
So
so,
we're replacing this storefront with this configuration, and this is the new set of doors.
right, and so I'm asking about that second new set of doors that's, I was trying to look at the historic, at the text photo, and I cannot tell, there was never a
No.
gate there or
Nothing
any
at the
kind
front.
of.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Hoffman-Smith.
On A700, the profiles look like it's an aluminum storefront system. So is that finish like an anodized finish, or is it actually a brass material?
It was supposed to be a brass material. So it'll be extruded brass.
Okay, other questions? Okay, we'll move to public testimony and then we'll come back to you. Simeon Bancroft?
Good morning, Commissioners. Simeon Bancroft, Historic Districts Council. HDC finds the proposal for new entrance to be too strong for this building, particularly with regard to the proposed finish of the materials. The brassy color material is frankly too bright and a little too garish for the limited palette of this building. There is no evidence presented to suspect this color or material would have historically been present on the facade. We recommend the proposed new entrance match the historically accurate storefronts, which we noted on drawing A400.
Thank you. And there's no one else signed up in advance, but is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Okay. And just to note for the record, we did receive a resolution from Manhattan Community Board 1 stating that the new storefront and transom profiling should have more depth, and that aside from the detailing, the proposal is handsomely designed using fine materials, and they recommend approval. And I think that's it. So would you like to respond to that? Those comments, particularly about the finish and the materials?
The only thing I could add in terms of the finish, is the architect's intention to have this satin finish brass finish that they felt was consistent with the 1920s Art Deco style building.
Okay, thank you. Any final questions, commissioners? Okay, we'll have Commissioner Goldberg, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
And Commissioner Chan, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed and we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Devonshire, would you like to start this one?
Yeah, I'm okay with most of this, but I think the satin brass finish is a little bit too much. I think a bronze finish would be much more appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Chen,
Yeah, I agree.
Commissioner Bland.
Yeah, bronze, not satin, about brass.
Okay, Commissioner Jefferson.
Agree.
Okay, Commissioner, agree.
I'm opposed to the front set of doors, bringing them forward to that first kind of arched opening, and I think it should remain set back. But I agree with others' comments about the material and it being bronze. Bronze would be better.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Hoffman-Smith.
I'm okay with the double set of doors, and I agree it should be bronze.
Okay, and Commissioner Goldblum.
I agree with the majority.
Okay, all right, so we do have a majority who would support the proposal to install the new doors, but with a bronze finish instead of a brass finish. So Commissioner Devonshire, would you make that motion?
In the matter of 145 Hudson Street in the Tribeca West Historic District, an application to alter the entrance. I recommend approval with some modifications, finding that the modern doors and transoms to be removed are not significant features of the building, that the proposed details and profiles of the doors and transom windows are based on those aspects of the restored historic storefronts and will be harmonious with the other infill at the base of the building in terms of design, and that the proposed installation of infill nearly flush with the facade will address the safety and security issue and will be in keeping with the location of entrance infill typically found at buildings of this type, style, and age, and will be consistent with infill found elsewhere in the base of the building. However, I find that the proposed satin brass finish will not be in keeping with finishes historically found at this building, and the removal of the paneled cast iron infill and step profile ceiling within the.
We don't need to read that one. You don't need to read that.
No, forget that, right. Therefore, I recommend that the proposed doors be finished in a bronze color.
Thank you. And Commissioner Chen, would you second that motion?
Second.
Thank you. And Mark, call the vote.
Chair Carroll.
Aye.
Commissioner Bland. Aye. Commissioner Shamir Barron.
No.
Commissioner Chen. Aye. Commissioner Devonshire.
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum. Aye. Commissioner Gustafson. Aye. Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Holford Smith.
Aye.
With 8 in favor and 1 opposed, the motion passes.
Okay, so that's approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, and so that concludes our morning session, and we are ahead of schedule. Our applicants, first applicants after lunch, were not able to rush to get here in time. So we're going to break for lunch now, and we will return at 12:15. And we'll ask all members of the public to exit the hearing room during the lunch break. However, you can wait in the anteroom and the hallway as long as you remain 6 feet away from each other and keep your masks on. All right, thank you.
I don't